Um, we're going to go ahead and get started, okay? Because I want to be respectful of everyone's time, okay? So today, Margaret Williams here, the publisher of the Empowered Leader, and I help marginalized leaders increase their impact, their influence, and visibility, okay? So we can achieve our overall goals and get the growth that we deserve, okay? So today, I'm honored to have Will Fullwood here with me today. We're going to be talking about building an anti-racism movement, okay? So,
Yes.
yes, we need that, all right? So Will, he is online as the contraband, okay? And he is not engaging in surface level conversations about race. He's building an infrastructure for racial consciousness, okay? And based on his expertise, okay, Will operates across education, law, and activism, okay, with intention. His work centers on shifting how people understand race, not just through outrage, but through discipline, dialogue, and accountability. Okay? Will brings nearly 2 decades of experience in education, teaching learners from early childhood through adulthood. Okay? He currently serves as a professor of transition math and English of the North Carolina Community College, okay? His expertise includes assessment and educational technology, which means he understands both systems and outcomes, okay? He is a trained attorney holding a Juris Doctorate, okay? And actively practicing law. That legal grounding sharpens his approach. He does not simply critique systems, he understands how they function. Okay? And who better to talk to us today than Will Fullwood? Thank you so much, Will, for
Thank
joining us
you
today.
so much, Margaret. My goodness, that intro. I do have to make a couple corrections. So, first of all, I'm no longer a professor teaching transition math and English in the North Carolina Community College system. I did quit that job in August. Okay. So last year in August, I said, you know what? I'm moving on. I'm going to spend my full time working on building this anti racism movement that we're going to talk about today. So even though I love, the kids and the adults that I taught over the years, I have so many great memories and so many people have told me the impact that I've had, which has really just been a wonderful joy to be able to give people, get people through the difficulty that learning can be, right? The struggle that it can be. And to have people, so many different people from so many different walks of life tell me that I made an influence on their learning in a positive way, it's just something that really helps me move forward while I'm educating people in a different space. And then the other thing that I want to say is that I actually never practiced law outside of a student practice order that I got when I was doing my clinical work in law school. So I did represent clients in court as part of the criminal defense clinic that I worked for. However, I never practiced as an attorney because I got gate kept from actually getting a job as an attorney. And if anyone's interested in hearing that story about me getting gate kept, it's out there in many places on my Contraband Wagon Substack, on my YouTube channel, so you can check all that out. But yeah, I never was able to actually show people what a amazing attorney that I could be in the courtroom outside of, the schooling and the awards I won for the school and like the people I did get to represent through my clinical work. So it was a disappointment, but life is a journey that leads you where you need to go. You know what I mean? And it led me to the decision to create an anti-racism movement and kind of let a lot of the traditional careers and pathways that I had been trying to follow along, trying to let that stuff go and realize, you know what? I need to build my own thing, because I was always trying to twist myself, contort myself, squeeze myself into different places, into different careers, into different jobs, into different people's projects, you know? And ultimately, I have my own project I've been working on since I was 6 years old. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should probably lean into that, you know? It only took me, what, 30 years to figure it out. Hi, Eric. Hi. Uh, so, yeah. So, yeah, that's what I want to talk to you about today.
Tell me how this anti-racism thing that you're looking at, okay? This movement, how does that differ from what you're already working on?
So, basically, the movement, it really doesn't differ than that much from what I'm already working on. But what I'm doing is I'm expanding the work that I'm already working on, right? So I'm increasing its effectiveness, I'm increasing its reach, and I also want to create a situation where it's known that I'm creating this environment for conversations on race and that it's a safe environment. And that's something that I've been noticing that people here on Substack who are watching my live stream conversations, these are some of the private DMs that I get about it that like, wow, like I don't normally hear people talk about race in a way that like normally I want to turn it off, you know, but like with you, I just want to keep listening, you know, and people telling me that they recognize that the language that I use, you know, the way that I approach the conversation is radically different. And I think it's even radically different than the way most people in the anti-racism space in general approach this work. So we could talk about that, but before we get into that, I just want to say I want to talk a little bit about why conversation. Why I'm choosing conversation because a lot of people question that, you know, like what is a conversation going to do? What difference is a conversation going to make, you know? Why would you focus on that? And you know, I want to talk a little bit about conversation as a vehicle for education and empowerment, right? Because as a teacher for all these years, right, I got to see so many different moments of enlightenment, right? So many moments where students went from ignorance into knowledge, and then the joy that that brings, the excitement that that brings, the curiosity that it sparks. And I have been the catalyst for a lot of those moments, thousands, I would say, at this point. And yeah,
I want to say that it gives people hope.
yes. Yes, because when you're empowered, right, you feel hopeful because you feel like you have the power to actually transform your world. And that belief, right? That belief is the foundation of hope, right? That you can actually make a difference, that you can actually change things, that with your own individual power something can happen. And yeah, I love seeing that. I love creating those moments for people. I love watching the joy that it brings. Um and it didn't start when I became a professional teacher, Margaret, you know? Like, it started a long time ago. Like, back in middle school, I was a peer mentor. So I would often have student conflicts and I would be the mentor there, kind of working them through it, you know, kind of helping them illuminate what went wrong and how we can make changes. I was always, even back in second grade, I was the one who my math teacher had go up to the board and teach the class a mathematics concept. I was even doing it even back then, right? Because um, I really always, from a young age, experienced learning, right? From my father at home, who taught me mathematics before I ever entered kindergarten. My mother, who was really showing me how to show up in the world with values and live out those values. And, you know, I just kind of loved learning. You know, I love those moments of learning for myself, those moments of realizing, oh, wow, this is how things really are, you know? And I wanted to share that with people, right? So it started at a young age. And then what else started at a young age was my recognition that race was something that most people were ignorant about and something that there was a lot of misinformation and disinformation about. And I figured that out because this 6-year-old little boy in the hallways of Fayetteville Street Elementary School in Central North Carolina, where I went to school, he said, "Why don't you act black? Why don't you act black?" And I said, "What do you mean by that?" You know? And he said, "Well, you don't curse." He said, "Well, you get good grades." He said, "You're not in a gang." And he just started rattling off these qualities that for him, he believed that's what made someone black. That represented blackness, you know? And for me, what I had learned about race at that time was that race was a thing of the past, right? We categorized these people and there was all this oppression, but we fought it with Martin Luther King and we won, you know? And that was the story that I was told. But then this little boy telling me that that's what he thought blackness was, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because if we won and this was over, this child would not be thinking of himself and his blackness as all of these negative qualities. And so it also made me realize that all the adults who I had talked to up to that point in my life, 6 years old, about this subject matter had told me the same wrong thing, that it was something of the past. That's what I was indoctrinated to believe. You know, when I was growing up, Margaret, I was being told that we're in a post-racial society, that we had gotten all past it, you know? And I believed it because why wouldn't I believe it, right? Because this is what the people I trust and who are in my social circle are telling me. But it was that experience at 6 years old that snapped me out of it and made me realize, oh, that's definitely not true. And it sparked my curiosity in the same way that I've sparked my students' curiosity throughout the years. And I've been very curious about this subject ever since and studying it intensely, both secretly and outwardly and notoriously for decades now. So that's the foundation of the movement.
Grew up in I was born in the 1960s, okay? So, that was a very pivotal, pivotal decade. Okay,
Yes.
well, a lot of things going on, the Bay of Pigs and, the music revolution, sex revolution, the civil rights movement and all of these things. And it did make a difference. Okay. It helped to implement a lot of the things that we are privileged that we have enjoyed. Okay. Because when I went into the workplace, there was affirmative action. Okay. And because of that, I was able to get the job with the government because I filled two quotas. I was black, okay, and female. So the organization was not required to hire anybody else. They fulfilled their quota, okay? But
Mhm.
we see all these things have been stripped away, okay? And so we have found a way. We have been resilient, and whatever is taken away, we have figured out a way to get our needs met, to get what we need, to take care of our families, okay?
Mhm. And
So
that's
they
what we
say
yeah, and I
we
was
had
just
no
gonna
choice.
yeah, exactly, and I mean, it was survival, right? And we did figure it out, you know? We did figure out how to make it through this impressive environment that was curated specifically to stop us from getting jobs, right? To stop us from getting housing, to stop us from having access to good food, to stop us from enjoying clean air, right? All of these things. And we still survived it. Not only did we survive it, but we created so much beauty out of such a terrible situation, right? And I think it's so relevant to what we're experiencing now, right? When we're having it be revealed that so many people in power, positions of power, are rapists, are murderers, are cannibals, are everything else that you can imagine, right? And finding a way to fight back and still find joy, that's something that us and our ancestors have learned well, right? And so it's prime time for our experience to come into play as in the days ahead. So yeah, you know, another thing that you said just there about you know stripping away, I believe is the phrase that you said, and I think that that's a really good phrase for what we're dealing with right now. We see that Black people, women are being erased from history, from military history, from scientific research, from, from monuments, from museums. I mean, there is an
The basis.
intentional oh, yeah, there's an
They
intention.
returning the names. I'm sorry. They're returning those Confederate names to the bases where we serve. Okay.
That's right. That's right. Rewriting history before our very eyes. And it's sick stuff, you know, very I mean, the word is evil, you know, like in my opinion. I think that what we're seeing is just the reflection of the machinations of evil, you know? Um,
Okay,
and, you know yeah, go
we
ahead.
can't we can't leave out the LGBTQ. Okay, also.
100%.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
and as a gay man myself, you know, and as someone who's been fighting back against that, you know, you just reminded me that back in undergrad, Margaret, I was part of this network called the Pride Network. And we used to go around to different various I was in Rochester at the University of Rochester, and we used to go around to different places in Rochester and give these presentations, you know, so people could educate themselves about the LGBTQ community and ask questions. And I got some of the most ignorant questions you could ever imagine, Margaret. But, you know, people just didn't know, right? And people were ignorant, you know? And so it was such a privilege, again, in that scenario to be able to be like, hey, listen, I hear that this is what you're thinking, but that's totally made up, right? You know, this is we don't pop out of the ground and you know, like whatever else people are thinking. And
Watermelons, like
right,
watermelons.
right.
Watermelon.
I know. And so yeah, it's I've been doing this work for so long, right? Like just helping people discover truth, you know, and find a way to truth. Because the truth is a huge value for me. I've always valued the truth greatly. And as you can see currently in 2026, the truth is under heavy attack.
Let me ask you this: whose
Mhm.
truth? Because they say their truth is real, and ours is like made up. Okay.
Well, you know, I don't really go by what they say because they're evil, right? And the foundation yeah, and the foundation of evil is lies. So, you know, I mean, I don't really care what a liar is telling me what the truth is or not. And I don't recommend that anyone believe that what I'm saying is the truth either just because I said it. The truth is something that exists outside of us. It doesn't exist because we said it or because we created it or because of anything like that. The truth is not dependent upon who says it or who experiences it or anything like that. It is completely separate from us. The truth would exist if all of us died. Okay. So we need to keep that in mind sometimes and realize that no individual person represents truth. The truth is its own thing. Okay. That can either be used for good or it can be used for evil. And everyone needs to focus then on what are your values? What are your values? If you value truth, if you value truth, then the truth will work for you. It will be your shield, it will be your guide. But if you disrespect truth the way that these people in power are doing, right? And just playing in our faces, lying to our faces constantly, um, yeah, ultimately it's gonna eat them up. It's eating them up inside and outside. You can see their faces get contorted, you know, you can see, them get sick. You can see them, you know, the inner turmoil sometimes and the cognitive dissonance that arises when they're trying to speak. They can't even get the words out right. They're, um the hypocrisy, right? It transforms them into something disgusting. And but if you lean into truth, it's the exact opposite. You'll be radiating, you'll be shining, you'll be a beacon of light for other people to find, you know? And that's what I hope to be when I'm creating this anti-racism movement. You know, a beacon of truth, you know, and hope, like you said earlier. So that's the goal.
Let me ask you this. Now we look back at the Declaration of Independence. Okay, the same people that wrote that also were slave owners, so they were playing both sides.
Well, I mean, I think the lies started back then, right? The same foundation of lies that we're dealing with now started way back when they say, listen, all men are created equal. And then they created a legal system that systematically oppressed certain people who weren't considered men, you know, women, the LGBTQ community, racialized Black people, Native Americans, all immigrants
Immigrants.
to this country. Exactly. And so, I mean, the lies started from jump. And have we ever corrected those lies? No, we have not corrected those lies because in order to correct them, we would have to be teaching the true history of this country. And the true history of this country is a history of oppression that was fought against over and over and over. It's the only narrative of this country's history that actually makes sense. But instead, we're taught, oh, we're the greatest country in the world. Every other country, we're the envy of every other country. that we're the best and everyone else is the worst. Like we're taught this BS story about the country. Our founding fathers were the greatest people, and created the strongest constitution. Meanwhile, our reality right now, right, is that our constitution is being completely destroyed, that it's not being followed by the people who are supposed to uphold it the most. The Department of Justice, the President of the United States, like Congress. These bodies were meant to be a reflection of the values enshrined in the Constitution, and they were meant to execute based on those values. It's not happening. It's not happening. And the reason why we can get to a point in our history where that's not happening is because of how it all started. Like you just said, it all started with a lie. It started with the lie that we want to create a free society where people are able to seek life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, where their right to speech, to assemble, to press, to protest is going to be protected, where they'll be free of search and seizure, unreasonable searches and seizures in their homes and in their bodies. All of this stuff has gone away.
So what the hell is going on in today's world? Okay, how can they come in and trample on our rights and on our liberties that has already been enacted and say, okay, we are equal? Based on what?
The answer to that, how?
We don't have equal health care, okay, education system, okay. I don't even know if you can even apply for even grant student loans. I'm glad I'm not applying for no more student loans. But I'm just saying, everything is just being stripped away for us. For us. Okay? They say, well, y'all figured it out a long time ago. You can figure it out today. But why should we have to go through that when you're giving everybody else all these advantages, and we have to make it? We have to accept the crumbs that fall from the table? I don't think so. That's the reason why I went to school, to get first an associate's degree, then a bachelor's degree, and then a master's degree, because I was told I wasn't good enough to come into these rooms, okay, because of the color of my skin. Okay, because I'm a female, and I don't know 1+1. I can't. I'm not smart enough to understand the conversations that are happening in these rooms we aren't invited to.
That's right. And that's how they treat us, right? I was treated the exact same way, like I wasn't enough. And I also was trying to get these degrees to try to prove myself, right? To try to say people, listen, I can be there just like you, like getting my bachelor's, getting my master's, getting my law degree, like, but also my journey was one where I was always wanting to investigate what was going on because I knew the lies. I knew this place was a foundation of lies at a certain point, but it's still very confusing, right? Because everyone is walking around acting like everything's normal, right? Even right now, when we found out the whole of the world's leaders are involved in a international sex trafficking ring and probably ritual sacrifice and cannibalism, right? As we're finding this out, everyone's still going about their business. People are going to work, they're sending their kids to school, and so that was the environment in which I was trying to discover um what the truth is, and it's very difficult to do that. But I did it. I found secret ways, I used mathematics. I used social engineering. I used books, right? I used documentaries. I used all kinds of I used people who had been in the civil rights movement and heard their stories. I went out seeking this information so that I could find out, what, how did we get here and how do we get out of here? Okay. How do we transform this toxic environment into something that's breathable?
Let me ask you a question. One of the biggest heroes during that time was Harriet Tubman. What are some of the tools that she used? She was successful. She never lost what you call the people that came along with her. She never lost a client, whatever you call it. Okay, she never. Everybody came alive at home, back home alive. And you know why? Because it was a coalition of all different groups of people, including whites, all different kind. They worked together. Okay. So
That's
how
right.
can we utilize some of these things in today's world? Okay, how can we utilize non-violent resistance to get this? How come we can't gather together and say, okay, we're not going to spend our money at these specific stores, okay, and target them. Okay, we have to grab them by the you know what, and we have to show them. You don't tell nobody nothing. You show them.
It's true,
Okay,
yeah.
we've been talking too long and we ain't seeing no results. We got to show them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, it's a process, Margaret, I try to give people grace who are not ready to take action yet, b and the reason why is because I recognize how poisonous this environment is, okay? It is insidious. I I cannot necessarily fault people for being unable to escape the poison. You know what I mean? And so when you say showing people, that's the key because when people see an example of someone going against the environment, that is what sparks people's curiosity about what's possible outside of what they already know, right? But this environment is trying to teach people not to be curious. It's trying to teach people not to be critical thinkers. It's trying to teach people to just go along with whatever is said so that they accept violence, so that they accept racism, so that they accept sexism, so that they accept transphobia. They want people to accept these things so that then they don't have to be held accountable for their violence, And it's a very it's a like I said, a very insidious design, and the only way that we can push back against it is to have people curious about another way of living, another way of being, a better environment that we could actually be in. And unfortunately, that's gonna take a really long time because, um, we've cultivated this toxic environment for a really long time, and a lot of people have become accustomed to it. Almost like, almost like a blanket shuttering themselves away from the world, and yeah,
Because people are numb and people really are exhausted. I'm exhausted from since he got into office. Every day is something else, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't keep up. Okay, and it's consuming us, and
yeah,
it's done like that for a reason. So while we're looking over here, they stealing all the money over here. Okay,
right.
so they say that the social security system is going to run out of money by 2032. Okay, so what the hell are you going to do about it?
Yeah, and as you can see, they're allocating billions of dollars to military and law enforcement, right? And ICE. I mean, ICE alone, the money that they've been allocated could solve, homelessness and hunger in the United States. So, I mean, it's representative of where this country's priorities are. We have to keep our eyes open and realize that these people want to hurt us. They actually want to hurt us, and it's a difficult thing to accept that your own government is after hurting you, right? That the cruelty is the point.
This
But
this
yeah,
is narcissism at its finest. You know narcissists,
I do. I
okay?
do.
They're manipulative, okay? They'll tell you anything and make you believe that red is blue.
That's
And if
right.
you stupid enough to believe it, that's to their advantage.
And if you
Okay?
don't believe it, then they'll punish you. So it's a very difficult scenario to be in. And so that's why I have grace for people, but this is why I think conversation, right, is a vehicle for opening up people's minds, inspiring curiosity, giving people hope and empowerment, and then allowing them to take some of the actions you were talking about earlier, boycotting corporations, right? Not spending their money there, not deciding to withhold your kids from school sometimes in a strategic fashion, Like we need to start breaking this system down and demanding action, demanding accountability. And people need to start being accountable for themselves and going through a process. So this is a good segue actually because this is why I'm creating an anti-racism movement, okay? Because it's not just about white supremacy as a system, which is an evil, insidious system that has been dictating outcomes and people's life experiences for generations now, okay? It's not just about that though. Okay? It's about how we actually like the sequence we need to go about in terms of changing things. we can't expect people just to all of a sudden one day, right, radically change the way that they're living, radically take different actions than they have been taking because it's just typically not what happens. Most people are not able to make radical changes even after enlightenment. Okay? That takes time for people to, grieve the former person that they were, grieve the former life that they had, and then step into something new, right? And something hopefully better and more positive. So if you think about it in the race context, where can that happen? Where can that happen? It can't happen at people's homes for the most part. Most people in their homes are not having discussions about race. They are not reckoning with race in a way that is truthful and that has integrity. And part of that is just people have ignorance. There's a lot of ignorance within people's own homes, about this subject matter. And most people haven't done the work in general from any generation, I would say,
Let's keep
like,
it
go
let's
ahead.
keep it real. A lot of people just don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Of course, there's shame involved, there's guilt involved, there's fear involved, right? All these negative emotions. And so we don't even get to the grief part, right? Of giving away that life when maybe you were an agent of a system of white supremacy without even realizing it, right? We don't even get to that point where people can acknowledge that and grieve it because we're so far from people understanding what white supremacy is in general and how it connects to their own personal life experience. So that is part of the movement I'm building. And that's why I'm utilizing conversation because conversations about race open people's minds up to the possibility that they were fooled, that they were betrayed, that they were lied to. Without those conversations, people will continue to believe the lies because it's less painful than letting them go. And that's part of the insidiousness of the system because it knows that once it has you, once it's ensnared your mind, that it's much more difficult to for you to escape that snare than it is for you to never be ensnared in the first place. Okay. And I want to change that dynamic. I want to transform that dynamic so that it's not, that the snare is not permanent, that there are places people can go to become unsnared, to free themselves, to understand the betrayal, to grieve the betrayal, and to transform themselves into a person who has the possibility and the hope in their heart to be able to imagine a new future, one in which we actually respect people's humanity, where we detoxify our environment and create an environment of human flourishing. And those are the people who I'm looking for out here when I'm doing my movement work. I want to talk to them. I want to support them. I want to hear from them. And I think the more people who can hear from people who have found a way, a different way of living, okay, than what we've been doing. These are the leaders of the future, in my opinion.
I just want to say this. Out of all the people here, uh, racism has affected me considerably. If it hasn't affected you, then you are blessed because majority of people in the world, it has affected them negatively in many ways, which affect us mentally, socially, financially, spiritually, in every aspect of our lives. It touches.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I would even argue, Margaret, that people who think it hasn't affected you, you're probably wrong. Okay. You may have had a great life. Your life may have been wonderful. Maybe you had all the money you needed, you got all the opportunities you needed, this and that. But I promise you that something was stolen from you by way of this system of white supremacy, despite your wonderful life, because you did not have communion with Black people at a human level, because that is something that you were robbed of. And what you were robbed of there was making an empathetic link to other human beings and having your empathy be narrowed to a certain group of people. It happens without your intention, without your knowledge. That's the way the system works. You can be doing it without even realizing it. And it's very scary for a lot of people to think that something can be happening to them and they don't know about it, right? But in reality, that is there is and white supremacy isn't the only system that works on us that way, right? The patriarchy works on us that way. You know, um, you know, a lot of things work on us that way. There's these external influences that kind of seep into our minds and slowly transform us over time that lead to sometimes us taking action that we don't even want to take, right? Like I actually talked to someone recently on my show, Margaret, who told me he was like, the way that I kind of started deconditioning myself, this was a racialized white man who grew up in a small town with almost exclusively all white people. And he said the reason decided to kind of educate myself and to escape that environment was because he didn't like the person he was becoming. He saw himself, he self-reflected, saw the person he was, saw the person he was going to become if he continued down this road, and he was like, "I don't like that. I don't want that for myself." And that was the catalyst for him, right? So, it's that self-reflection piece that people have become willfully against engaging in this context, in the race context specifically. And I really wanna bring that back because I think a lot of people have an idea of what it means for them, right? If I go down this road, if I self-reflect, I'm gonna be feel all these terrible emotions. It means that I'm a bad person. It means all these things about myself, And ultimately, when I have these conversations, I've had over 150 now, and people always comment about how positive it was and about how they thought about things that they haven't thought about in a long time. Sometimes people cry, right? And they're grieving. They're grieving that person who they were holding on to, that person who suffered through the system, that person who suffered racism, that person who felt powerless in the face of racism and felt like they couldn't do anything. That person who self-reflected, saw themselves and was disturbed. That person who was abused when they didn't go along with the system, the person who had to flee their own country just to get away from it. There's so many stories out there of people and the trauma that they've endured trying to escape white supremacy that they don't get to share. Where do they?
Had to walk away from my $130,000 government job because of racism, because they was intimidated by me. Okay. You sought me out. I'm highly, uh, you know, uh, able for this job. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you even talked to my previous supervisor who said, yes, she's highly confident and she can do this job. So they hired me to work on a $400 million runway project, but I wasn't good enough. Okay, they had to find a way to fire me because they were jealous of my knowledge and expertise. I didn't want their fucking job. Okay, came there to have a place to sit for 3 years because they paid $15,000 to bring me back from Israel because I wanted to get my high three. That's why I moved to Alaska.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
I just wanted to do my 3 years and then retire. Okay. So I would have had this coming July, I would have had 40 years of service, but they found a way to get rid of me instead. Like 8 or 9 people, it was more than that, banned against me. Okay? She did this wrong. She did this wrong, did this. And they talked to everybody to compile this report. Okay. Oh, well, we're going to talk to you about your performance. I'm like, okay. All right. I already had already in my mind, all my stuff was packed. I was ready to go. Okay. So I'm like, you're not going to fire me at 39 years of service. I don't give a damn what you do. You come up with all these things about, oh, well, she did this and she did that. Try to, your credibility. They try to take your everything. Okay. You think I'm going to let you take me out? Okay, when somebody getting ready to retire, they want to retire on the top of their game. If you're playing NFL football, you want to end on a positive note.
Yeah.
But you got all these people coming for you to make sure that don't happen.
Oh, yeah. It happened to my mom. It happened to my mom, Margaret. She spent all these years working as a nurse, helping people, taking care of people, critically ill patients, mentoring other nurses, and whatnot. She just has done so much incredible work at the hospital. And they ended up pushing her out, man. They ended up pushing her out right before retirement. And the crazy part about it is she still works for them. She got pushed out and then she went back and they hired her, so because of when they pushed her out, she got less in retirement. Okay. And then she ended up going back to work for them because they needed her, because they need her expertise, and it's so frustrating for me. It's so frustrating. Yeah, I know it. I've been through it too, like, I mean, I was literally in a conversation with the CEO of an education tech company who told me that he wouldn't pay me after a year of working for free, to show what I could bring to the table. I then had this kind of final conversation with the CEO where I was like, all right, it's time to pay, right? Like, I've shown you what I can do. I've shown you the value that I bring to this product and the company. And he fought against that. And so I said, "Well, I'm leaving now." And you know what's crazy? He then said, "Oh, but you have all these things that are quality that we need." So he's making the argument that I just made to him back to me. And I'm like, "What is this?" Like, I'm like, it's like our worth cannot be acknowledged by these people because they've been programmed, many of them, to not see it. And I've been in so many situations, Margaret, where I see people struggling with the cognitive dissonance of the image they have of me in their mind, the idea of who they need me to be in their mind versus who I actually am, who they're sitting across from, who they're speaking to and looking at. And there is a struggle there that I watch people go through. It's very perceptible to see people go through it and be like, I want this person to be less than they are, but they're not, and it makes people very uncomfortable.
Yes, because you know why? Because they're insecure. That's their shit. You deal with your shit, okay? Don't put that shit off on me because you feel like you less than. I don't give a damn. I went to school. I sacrificed everything, and I deserve this. You're not giving me shit. I
Right.
earned it.
Yeah, just like everybody else who earns it, right? And, like,
Fuck.
somehow you're looked at differently, and there's other things too, I was working at a school where all the black teachers were being systematically fired, but they couldn't fire me, Margaret. You know why? Because I was doing too good a job. In the end, they had to make stuff up, you know?
See?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what
In
I'm
the end,
saying.
yeah, in the end, they had to make stuff up. They made all kinds of stuff up. They made up a story um, that I made up a story that a kid said he would bring a gun to school. Back then, I was a mandated reporter. So a kid did say he would bring a gun to school. I reported it, and I got called into a meeting claiming that I made that up. I mean, another example. I was using an app on my phone for grading and attendance purposes when I was working in a high school, and I got called into a meeting for using my phone during class, even though they encouraged us to utilize technology in order to do some of these things. So once I explained, then they were like, "Oh, okay." Then I go into my mailbox and there is a letter in there that has been written up about me using my phone, and it's like a disciplinary letter about the same thing we just had the meeting about, and they said it was cool. And they still put a letter, they still concocted this breadcrumb trail so that they could try to say that I wasn't a good teacher, that I wasn't a good professional, and
They
yeah,
were compiling this file against you so they can say you are fired. That's
that's
what they
right.
were doing.
That's right.
Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. And
They
it's
were
it's
they
it's
were
sick,
gaslighting you flat out.
100%.
People gaslighting you and they like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
Okay? Then they turn the shit over to you. Like you're the one that's stupid.
that's
No,
right.
I'm very smart. And I'm gonna show you how smart I am. I'm gonna get the hell up out of your place because once a person show you who they are, believe it. The shit goes downhill from there.
It's
Cause
true.
they trying to see how much they can get away with. If you let them get away with that shit, then they gonna continue to keep adding more shit to it, and then you gonna say, look, I'm tired. Y'all can have this fucking job. Okay, cause you killing me.
And that's exactly what happened.
You ain't paying me enough money to take this abuse and do the job too. Fuck you.
Listen, there's no amount of money anyone could pay me, and I hope that other people watching think this as well. Like, y'all, you don't deserve to be abused no matter how much someone is paying you, okay? Your humanity is far more important than any dollar amount that anybody could give you. Okay. And it's more powerful than money, too. Okay. What we have to realize on our side is that we do have power, y'all. Okay. We may not have the money that these people have, but we have more power than them. We just need to figure out how to organize and activate it. And that is why I'm creating an anti racism movement, because if people can learn to decondition themselves from this system, to separate themselves from the system and understand what distinguishes their own humanity versus the system of white supremacy, because it's been confused, it's been intertangled in a way that people are unable to separate it. Okay. So once people are able to separate that, then a choice becomes available to them that was stolen from them. And that choice is, what are my values? What are my values? In this country, people get indoctrinated to believe that the values stated in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, that these values are the actual values that the country runs under. So they never actually consider what their own individual values are, because they're like, okay, well, I'm a good American. I'm doing the American thing. American values are great. So therefore, I don't need to spend time thinking about this. And it's an insidious way of indoctrinating people into evil slowly over time. And we need to interrupt that process. And I plan to interrupt it by creating conversations all over the nation where we can actually go ahead and openly speak about this betrayal that our country over generations has facilitated in order to create an environment of dehumanization, a lack of care for human life. And that's why we're seeing so much violence. Maybe you saw my note where I listed all the places where people have been shot and killed in the last 10 years. It's everywhere. It's literally everywhere we go, everywhere we exist in this country. And my mom said, not recently, she's like, isn't it like that in every country? No, it is not. No, it is not. People are not getting blown away like this everywhere they go in other countries. It is not. Nor do people accept violence the way that we accept it in this country.
When did all this come about? Okay.
It started with slavery. It started with the genocide of the Native Americans, and it never stops.
Okay, not just that too. Also the Chinese, also us, because
Of
remember,
course,
we built the railroads.
it's
Okay, so
all
the
throughout
trains could come
history.
through.
Chinese exclusion acts, the Japanese internment camps, discrimination against Irish and Italian immigrants. Like, I mean, you could go through the entirety of American history and you can see that the seeds have never been uprooted, that they've always sprouted back up over and over and over again. And there's continuously people who have been rising up to fight it. The problem is we've never been able to generate a critical mass of people who are saying enough is enough, and we want to create a system that's going to fight this into perpetuity, into the future. Evil is good at creating plans to go into the future, long-term plans. Okay, they've been fighting to get us to this point for 50 years. We need a similar kind of fight, a similar kind of plan that's going to extend into the future. Okay.
But this has to be grassroots, and it should be in every state. Okay.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's got to be grassroots. And that's why, I'm not finding the networks that people have already established, Margaret. Like, I'm not trying to enter myself into an already established network. I'm building my own network. Okay. I have to. You have to, right? Yeah, go ahead.
But we have to keep in mind about the Panther movement, how J. Edgar Hoover, he brought in infiltrators to take down that group.
Of course.
Okay, from the inside. So you have to be careful about that. Because the most times the people that take you down is the people that's closest to you. So you have to be very, very careful who you have in your inner circle.
And this brings me back to what you said earlier about Harriet Tubman. Her success was based on the fact that she was able to distinguish who was with it and who wasn't, who was down and who wasn't down. It is one of the main reasons why she found so much success. And, she wasn't like mean about her or anything, but she was steadfast. She was steadfast in her values, right? And so she could easily distinguish when someone's values did not align with hers and she acted on that difference. Okay. She excluded people whose values did not align, and she accepted people whose values did align. And that's what led to her success. That's what
And
led
she
to her to
never
find all those people.
and she never lost a client. I'll just say client, okay? She
Exactly.
never.
And like you
Okay?
said, it was a multiracial, multicultural, movement,
Movement.
right? And
Yes.
she was able to find all those people. What did they have in common? Not their race, not their sex, not their sexuality. It was their values. That's what they had in common, and that's what brought them together and made it work. So, yeah, my goal for creating this anti-racism movement is to bring people with the same values together, okay? And empower us so that we can do things together and work with each other. Okay, these evil people, they found ways to work with each other, whether it involves blackmail or whatever else, like whatever machinations they utilize to cooperate, they do cooperate. Okay, our cooperation is going to be based in love. Our cooperation is going to be based in hope, and therefore it is stronger.
And joy. Let's not forget
That's
joy.
right, and joy,
Okay?
100%.
My concern is how you fund it because you have to have security and safety in place, okay? Because there are so many people that are trying to take us down,
You're right.
okay? So how you fund this? You fund it through nonprofits or what?
My movement is going to be a for-profit business. Okay. This is going to be a for-profit business. I'm purposely not being in the nonprofit space because I've met many
Mhm.
people in the nonprofit space, and what they communicate to me is that they are restrained, that they feel like their work is diminished as a result of the creation of that entity. And I cannot be restrained. I cannot be, I refuse, and so I'm also making sure that I'm not going to connect my business to the economy of the United States.
I know that's right.
Yeah, I can't, like it would be foolish of me to connect my business to the United States. I will be doing business in the United States, but it will not be a United States based company because I want them to have a much harder time trying to stop me. So, like you said, I have considered in the creation of my business what I need to do in order to kind of protect myself from some of these infiltrations, right? Actually, you reminded me of a conversation I had in one of my open discussion groups I have online. I bring people to like Zoom calls once a month, and we have round robin discussion on race. And somebody asked me about that, Margaret, some months back about, well, don't you think that people are going to infiltrate you? And I said, yes. I anticipate that infiltration will occur, and I have plans for that, okay? I have plans for my own demise, Margaret, okay? Like, I have I'm very much a problem solver and a planner, and, I am, indefatigable, and I am ruthless, and and I am persistent. I think that these are qualities that people don't think about for people who hold values like love and kindness and compassion and empathy, but these are values of mine. I will ruthlessly pursue this, and I will pursue it strategically using every ability that I have. And people have been underestimating me my whole life, right? And I've never failed, despite that. So I feel very confident that I can be successful. The question is, am I going to be able to have enough time to really gather enough people in community in order to realize that a movement where we create conversation on race across the nation consistently is enough. That is enough to decondition enough people, get their curiosity going. Because as you can see, these evil people, they have to become more and more violent in order to keep people in the dark, right? They have to perpetuate their violence. So as
Fear.
that happens,
They're using fear.
of exactly. Fear as a weapon. So as that is continuing, more and more people are going to reject it because it's not what people want. People don't want to be scared all the time. You know,
And I don't want you taking me back to Nazi Germany either.
right?
Place that
Like
I know nothing about. Okay?
yeah. I mean, these concentration camps are building all around the nation. Trying to fund. Like we can't allow it, right? If we have a value of human life, which I think most people in this country do value human life, okay, And I think that we just need to tap into those values, get people to consciously think about them, think about how they may be acting in conflict of those values, and choose differently. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, what kind of world do you want your children and grandchildren to grow up in? Do you want them to be in this Nazi regime? Do you want them part of that?
Exactly.
I know you can't send me back to Africa. Maybe my ancestors came from Africa, but I was born here in the United States. Now I have to prove that I'm a citizen of the United States.
Absolutely not.
Now I have to show papers that I have the ability to vote. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's absurd, it's absurd. And, you know, um, my only I mean, I don't wanna get too far into it because, yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah.
I I don't wanna get too far into the voting aspect and the political aspect because I truthfully believe that while politics dictates a lot of our lives, right? Like, um, I think it's kind of a paradox because I do not think via politics that we have a way of changing things at this point in time. It's very unfortunate, but I don't think that we have the political power in order to do that at this moment, which is why I don't focus on politics because I really, I think that we have to go through some stuff now. We're already going through stuff, but we're going to go through more. This is the beginning. These people are not going to stop. They're going to build their concentration camps. They're going to put people in it. They're going to put ice everywhere. This is their plan, and no one has the power to stop them. And we
Who's
need to
the
start
next
building it
target?
now.
We need to. Who's the next target? Is it us? Is it who? Is it interracial marriage? They're going to be going for that. I'm just saying we have to figure out what we're going to do to slow it down if we can't stop it.
We can stop it though. This country only runs because of us. Ultimately, we need to realize that. And people
So
need
they
to
don't realize it. How
They
us?
do realize it, Margaret. They know it, which is why they try so hard to control us. They must control us in order to make their machinations, evil machinations, come to fruition. They must control us. So they know. They know that if they lose control over us, they lose. And so we have to then make sure that we don't relinquish control of ourselves to them. That is the key. Okay. We
Well,
have to take it back.
well, tell us how to do that.
Well, this is why I do conversation, right? Because
Yeah.
ultimately it's an emotional heart thing that we're dealing with. It's a spiritual thing. Okay? Like that they have um dulled our senses. They have lulled us into a sense of passivity. And in order to get it back, we need to energize people who know that something is wrong, but they can't necessarily put their finger on it and they don't know what to do about it. I find that there are a lot of people out there who fit that mold, and all they need is someone to help facilitate a process whereby they can become enlightened about themselves, about this country, about the world, and then make that choice, that critical choice that they are going to lean into hope, that they're going to lean into kindness, empathy, and compassion, and lean into the creation of a better world. But you can't do that if you're stuck in this one. You can't do that if you're stuck on thinking this is the only world that we can have.
That's why community is so, so important, right?
Yes, absolutely. We have to build community and, it proves to people that there's other ways of doing things, right? Like, for instance, in my community, someone let me, my car broke down, right? I didn't have a car. I needed a car. And a friend of mine's like, hey, we have a car. It's a community car. We got the community car, we used it for a few days while our car was in the shop getting repaired, and we brought it back, and we filled up the gas tank for the next person, who might need it, and it's little things like that that start showing you, "Oh, like, I didn't need to go to a corporation and get a car rental, right? Like, someone within my community was willing to help me with this." Community gardens, where we're feeding our communities. Weekly block parties where people can commune and they can enjoy each other's company and they can talk and they can build community. Political gatherings, town halls where people can figure out, okay, who aligns with our values as a community? Who do we want to support? You know, building these structures is the next step, and they have to be grassroots. They have to be separate from what we already have. Yeah. So
So how are you going to fund it? It like a GoFundMe or something? Have you thought about something like that?
so far in my work, I've been funding it myself, okay? Literally just through my paltry teacher salary and stretching the money as far as it can possibly go, right? I've gotten quite far in just doing that, okay? However, you're right. I am going to need some kind of funding for the future projects that I'm going to do. But I will tell you, Margaret, I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot to make this happen. And so ultimately, yeah, there's ways of funding it. So how do I start with this? I haven't really talked about this publicly yet, so I'm just want to make sure that I put out exactly what I mean and what I want to say about the funding. Um, the same way you said we need to develop these movements in a grassroots way, right? I think the funding is no different. Okay,
Right.
it needs to be funded in a grassroots way, but I think that what I have going for me, and I've seen a model for this with another business. Um, is people getting other people to fund it. People being the vehicle to get other people to fund it, right? It's part of building community is getting funding. So, when I'm teaching people about anti-racism, right? And I'm teaching people, hey, this is me educating you about the country that you're in, the oppressive history of it and whatnot, connecting it to your present and your personal life experience. People grieve, people shed the fear, shed all those negative emotions, and they're ready to step into a new life, a new world, right? So that is when people are primed to realize that, hey, do I want to be buying that Starbucks coffee every day? Do I want to be spending money on all these apps? Maybe if I choose my values to be a value of anti racism, I can spend my money on anti racism. I should spend my money on anti racism, in fact, because that is something that I value. But getting from where people are now to there, it's a process, right? But I've seen it work. I've seen it work in other contexts. I've seen people um, experience an awakening and then choose to act as an advertisement, basically, a walking, living advertisement for that awakening for other people in their life. Why? Because we love each other because we love each other. And if we love each other, then why wouldn't we want people to have that freedom? Why wouldn't we want people to have that hope? Why wouldn't we want people to be empowered? Why wouldn't we want people to be enlightened? And so ultimately, it's up to people who get that awakening to go out and get other people to get it, you know? And this is a model that does in fact work. It is working right now out in the world in reality. So I know it can work. And I think part of the way that it works is by giving people not just a lecture, right? Not but by not just giving people a sermon, but by giving people an experience, a personalized experience for them specifically that you facilitate them in curating for themselves so that they don't even have to question whether this awakening is real, whether something's being happening to them, right? Because they're creating it. You are just a guide helping them facilitate that. So that's the work that I'm going to be doing, helping people facilitate these experiences that awaken them to the reality that they can separate themselves from the system of white supremacy, that they can make that choice, and that choice indeed is the best choice. So that's what I'm going to do.
Well, well, you let us know how we can support you. I'm sure you'll be having further conversations about it. And if you want to come back on and talk about it, I would be honored to
Thank you.
do my part. It's about doing each of us doing our part, to pay it forward because, you know, um, it'll help my daughter and future generations, okay, even the current generation. And I would even like to see how we can help the local communities, how we can help to fund like some what do you call it, like send some young people to school, because we don't know, whether they're going to even continue to support the thing, what you call it, they got rid of the Department of Education. Okay, so I don't know who is handling the student loan system and how people are going to be able to fund their future educational pursuits. So,
Absolutely.
so this is what we need to be looking at. Okay, and
Yeah.
so how, yeah,
And
how can we
when we
support you?
build community, right? When we build that community, that's when we can start building systems in place to fund people's education, to fund people's healthcare, to make sure people have food, housing, and clothing and whatnot, right? And it all starts with organization, Miss Shirley, Miss Shirley?
I may.
She passed away recently, and you know, she she was clothing people. She was feeding the homeless. She was clothing people. She was getting them what they needed, their supplies. She was giving them hope, and she was strengthening their spirits. And she did it publicly, she did it notoriously, she did it openly. And every time someone tried to stop her, she found a way to keep going. And she was just a really big inspiration for me. In the work that I want to do. I had hoped to partner with her in the future, right? And so that we could work together. But, her legacy will live on, hopefully through the work that I do, and just like many Black women who came before her, she was the model, and she was an exemplar of what we need to do. And um, yeah, I just want to put that out there because she's such a hero of mine, and she's gone too soon, but again, what you said earlier about being an example, she was an example for me. She was an example for me, and I'm gonna take on what she showed me, and I'm gonna run with it.
Great. And one of the things you talked about is you willing to, you putting your all into it. And like me, and a lot of veterans and other people, we are willing to die for what we believe in. Okay?
100%. I've already
Absolutely.
devoted my life, 100%. My life is on the table, and that's not a secret to anyone. I speak openly about it. I don't intend to survive this, to be honest. I believe that, I'll definitely be detained, and, because I'm so persistent and that I won't give up, I believe that I will end up coming, face to face with, violence in the future.
I have experienced some controversy myself, but I refuse to be censored. I refuse to be intimidated. I refuse to be manipulated because if our ancestors didn't fight for these rights, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I'm willing to fight, die for that because Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, a lot of these leaders knew that their time on this earth was limited,
That's
but
right.
they fought for these rights and was willing to die for it.
That's right.
And there it is.
My motivation is the same as yours. I don't want these babies growing up in this world. I refuse. I refuse to allow it. Okay? Like, I don't have kids of my own, but I will not let these children grow up in this world. This world is sick. It's toxic for them, and I just won't allow it, and I hope that other people who won't allow it, who feel the same way, who are willing to risk something to make sure that this doesn't isn't the world that our kids grow up in, find me, reach out to me, support us, support the work that we're doing to try to create a better world. It's the only way. Okay. And everybody doesn't have to give their life. Okay. I'm saying that I'm giving my life because, this is it's my individual decision, right? It's my life. I could do what I want with it. Right. And for me, there's nothing more important than this. There's nothing more
Nothing,
important than giving.
nothing.
Yes, the giving these kids a future they can actually step into that is worthwhile. There's nothing more important to me. And so, yeah,
Who do they have to look up to but us?
right,
Okay. We need to
right.
set the standard. We need to raise the bar. Okay.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, let's continue doing that. Let's continue being that example and showing people that they don't have to just accept the world as it is. We can create something better, bigger, more progressive, something that is an environment that we can be proud of, a country that we can be proud of. No one can rationally be proud of this country right now. And
No.
so Yeah, I hope everyone reflects on what that means, that we can't be proud of this place. I hope everyone reflects on the violence that we're surrounded by on a daily basis, what it's doing to us, what it's doing to our children, and decide that, hey, it's unacceptable. And hey, I also have some power to do something about it. And whatever that power is, I'm going to use it, even if it's minuscule. Just taking small, tiny steps, even if that step is educating your own self. Okay. That can be enough. All right. It's all about mindset and taking action that's consistently rising to the level that we need for revolution, y'all. All right. And I'll be right with
Absolutely.
y'all.
And I'm using my platform for truth, for bringing positive change in this world, regardless of what that means and regardless of the consequences. Okay? We
And
have
you're
to
doing it.
stand for something or fall for anything.
Yes, absolutely. So don't fall, guys. Rise along with us. Rise with us. All right. We welcome you. We invite you. We honor you. And I look forward to working with everybody who's trying to do what Margaret's doing here, which is being a bullhorn for truth and creating an environment of flourishing. Let's do it, guys.
I want to thank you all so much for coming today. And Will, I really enjoyed this conversation, and we will have many conversations in the future, I'm sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I look forward to having more in the future, Margaret. Reach out anytime. You know, I got your back. All right. Like, if there's something I can do to
Likewise.
support you, let me know. Okay.
Likewise. Thank you.
And y'all in the future, look out for our future conversations. We are going to have one, me, Margaret here, Walter Ryan, and Sima Lieberman, also another race conversation specialist. We're all going to be together. Look out for that coming up in about a week and a half or so. Okay. Thank you guys and see you next time.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.